All right, let's dive into something pretty thought-provoking today.
Sounds good.
We're going to be looking at excerpts from The Way of the Superior Man by David Deida.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that one.
Have you read it?
I haven't read the whole thing, no, but I've read quite a bit about it.
Okay, yeah. This book, it's kind of like a guide for men who are looking for a different way of being masculine.
Yeah.
You know, one that combines strength and purpose with sensitivity and spirituality all at the same time.
Yeah, it's a really popular one for sure.
It is, and it gets deep pretty fast.
Oh yeah.
Talking about that magnetic pull between masculine and feminine energies and really what it means to live a fulfilling life as a man.
You know what I think is really interesting about Deida's work is how more it resonates with kind of like what's going on in culture right now.
Yeah, totally.
It seems like so many people, especially men, are really like yearning for more depth, more meaning in their lives, a sense of purpose that goes beyond just, the everyday grind.
Absolutely. And Deida really hits on that idea of living intentionally, connecting to something bigger than yourself, not just skimming the surface of life. And he even gives this really interesting practice to try.
Oh, yeah, like what?
Spending 1 hour every day doing something that you absolutely love.
No matter what.
No matter what, no excuses.
He is pretty upfront about it.
He is.
In the book, he actually says, most postponements are excuses for a lack of creative discipline.
Ooh, that one stings a little bit.
Just a little bit, yeah.
It makes you think, right?
Yeah.
Are we letting all the shoulds in life crowd out the things that really light us up?
For sure.
Deida also gets even more intense when he talks about confronting what he calls the shadow of our fathers.
Oh, yeah, the dad stuff.
Yeah. Now, before anyone gets worried,
Yeah.
he's not saying you should go pick a fight with your dad.
Right.
It's more about recognizing those patterns and expectations that we inherit from our upbringing.
Okay.
And he suggests doing anything for just 3 days that your father would disapprove of as like a symbolic act of rebellion to help you break free from those limitations.
Right, kind of pushing past those boundaries that we've inherited and finding where our real edge is.
Yeah.
That place where we're challenged to actually grow and step into our full potential.
They could resonate with a lot of people, especially those who feel like they've been living by somebody else's rules.
Absolutely.
But Deida also says that this isn't about pretending to be some fearless superhero either.
No, not at all.
Right.
He's really big on honesty, owning up to our limitations, our fears, and having the courage to work with them, to push past them.
Little by little.
Yeah, a lot of what he talks about is that constant process of self-discovery.
Okay, I'm starting to see why this book is considered like such a powerful guide for men.
Yeah.
It's about being authentically you, even with all the messy parts.
Yeah.
But what about relationships?
Oh, that's a good question.
How does all this self-discovery stuff actually play out when you're in a couple?
Well, that's where Deida's ideas about masculine and feminine essence come into play. Okay. He believes that most people have a dominant energy, either masculine or feminine, and that understanding these energies is like really important for building passionate and fulfilling relationships.
Okay, so what exactly does he mean by masculine and feminine essence?
Yeah.
Is he just talking about traditional gender roles here?
No, not exactly.
Okay.
It's more about the fundamental energies that are in all of us, regardless of gender identity.
Got it.
He uses some interesting examples to illustrate this point.
Oh, like what?
Imagine that you're choosing between watching a football game or a romantic comedy.
Oh, okay.
Which are you naturally drawn to?
Interesting. I could see how that could reflect either like a more active competitive energy or a more receptive, emotionally driven energy.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And he's not saying one is better than the other. It's just about recognizing those natural inclinations in ourselves and in our partners.
Makes sense.
This is where things get a little controversial, though.
Oh, how?
Deida argues that forcing a 50-50 balance between masculine and feminine in a relationship can actually kill the passion.
Oh, so he's saying that trying to erase those natural differences can backfire.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He thinks that those very differences, that polarity between masculine and feminine, are what create the spark, the attraction.
Okay.
It's like trying to force two magnets together with the same poles.
Oh, yeah.
They're just going to repel each other.
They're going to push away from each other.
But when you have those opposite poles,
Uh-huh.
that's where you get that natural magnetic pull.
Okay, that's a pretty powerful analogy.
Yeah.
But how does this actually play out in real life?
Right.
How do these energies show up in a relationship?
Well, Deida gets into this in a lot of detail in the book, even getting into some intimate dynamics.
Okay.
But I think a good place to start is just understanding how those masculine and feminine energies express themselves in everyday interactions.
Oh, okay.
Think about it. Have you ever noticed how men and women approach certain situations differently? Even when it comes to something as simple as asking for what they want.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I can definitely see that in my own relationships.
Yeah.
But how does this all tie back to that idea of purpose that we were talking about earlier?
Right. So that's where Deida kind of drops a bombshell.
Okay, what's that?
He believes that a man's purpose has to come before his relationship.
Oh, wow.
And he's really serious about this. He even says that a man should never change his mind just to please a woman.
Wow, that's a bold statement.
It is.
I can imagine that might ruffle a few feathers.
It does.
What's the reasoning behind that?
Well, his argument is that a man who's truly connected to his purpose, who's living authentically and going after his passions, will ultimately be more attractive and fulfilling to be around.
It's not about neglecting your partner, but more about recognizing that a man with a strong sense of self and direction is actually going to bring more to the relationship.
Right, and he uses a really powerful example to illustrate this.
Okay, with that.
He talks about a man who has to go to his father's funeral, even though his partner is begging him to stay.
Oh, that's a tough one.
It's a difficult situation, but Deida says it's crucial for the man to honor his commitments and his own truth, even if it means, causing some temporary discomfort for his partner.
Yeah, that's tough. But I can see how it connects to that idea of living with integrity. Makes you wonder, right?
Yeah.
Have we ever compromised our own needs or desires just to keep things smooth in a relationship?
Yeah. Have you ever felt that kind of pull
Oh, for sure.
between staying true to yourself and trying to please someone else?
Yeah.
And how did that work out for you?
Okay, so we've talked about purpose
Right.
and these masculine and feminine energies.
Yeah.
What else does Deida have to say about how men and women relate to each other?
Well, this is where things get even more interesting.
Okay.
He dives into the psychology of women,
Okay.
and he makes this pretty bold claim
What's that?
that what a woman says she wants
Uh-huh.
is often not what she truly desires at a deeper level.
Oh, that's a bit of a minefield.
It can be.
What's he getting at there?
So he believes that women, especially those with a strong feminine essence, they operate more from feeling and intuition
What?
than from logic and reason.
So it's not about taking everything literally, but more about trying to tune in to those unspoken needs and desires.
Exactly.
Okay.
He gives this classic example that I think a lot of people can relate to.
Okay, what's that?
It's a woman's birthday, and she says she wants to choose what they do to celebrate. But secretly what she's hoping for is that her partner will take charge and plan a surprise.
Oh, I think we've all been there.
Right?
So how do we learn to decipher those subtle cues and understand what's really going on beneath the surface?
Deida suggests that a woman's complaints, even the ones that seem really small, are often what he calls content-free signals.
Content-free?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Basically, it means it's not really about the specific issue itself, but about something deeper that's not being addressed.
Okay.
So, for example, he talks about a woman who gets upset about her partner's messy garage.
Oh, yeah, I definitely heard that one before.
Right, so on the surface,
Yeah.
it looks like it's just about the clutter.
Yeah.
But Deida suggests it's really about the woman feeling like her partner isn't fully honoring his commitments,
Okay.
that he's not following through, and it creates this sense of unease and insecurity in the relationship.
So those little annoyances can actually be symptoms of a much bigger problem.
Exactly, and it highlights how important it is to pay attention to those subtle cues, those underlying dynamics that can really make or break a relationship.
Right.
Think about it. Have you ever experienced those kind of communication breakdowns in your own relationships?
Yeah, for sure.
Where it feels like you're speaking totally different languages?
It's like trying to solve a math equation with words, and it just doesn't compute.
Right, so Deida's message here is to really tune in, listen beyond the words, and try to understand the emotional needs that might be driving those complaints.
Okay. Deep breath. We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Purpose, masculine and feminine energies, the nuances of communication.
It's a lot.
And Deida doesn't stop there.
Nope.
He also gets pretty explicit about desire, especially from a man's perspective.
This is where things get a little spicy for some people.
Yeah.
But Deida doesn't shy away from exploring those kind of primal urges.
Okay.
He talks about how men are naturally drawn to feminine energy.
Okay.
And not just in women.
Right.
He sees it in music, in nature, in certain foods and drinks.
So it's not just about sexual attraction, but about appreciating those life-giving qualities that the feminine represents.
Exactly.
Okay.
He even gets into that tricky territory of wanting more than one woman, even within a committed relationship.
Oh, wow.
Now, before anyone gets any ideas,
Yeah.
he's not condoning infidelity here.
Okay.
He's simply stating a reality that a lot of men experience, that pull towards variety and exploring different expressions of feminine energy.
He even uses this analogy of women having different temperatures.
Yeah.
Some are hot and fiery, others are cool and soothing. What's he getting at there?
It's a way of describing those different kinds of energy that we might be drawn to at different points in our lives.
Okay.
Some women embody that passionate, exciting energy, while others bring a sense of peace and stability.
He even gives an example of a man who's married to a hot woman, but finds himself drawn to the cool energy of her friend.
Right.
That could get complicated.
Yeah, it definitely highlights the complexity of desire and how our needs for different types of energy can shift over time.
Yeah.
It all comes back to that self-awareness piece, understanding what you're truly drawn to and why.
Yeah, what kind of energy are you drawn to right now, and why do you think that is?
That is a great question.
So are we all just destined to be slaves to our desires? Is that what Deida's saying?
Not necessarily. His point is not about just acting on every impulse.
Okay.
It's more about understanding the role that desire plays in our lives and how it can be a really powerful source of energy and inspiration if we learn to channel it in a positive way.
Yeah. It sounds like he's encouraging us to think of it more like a dance between these energies rather than some kind of battle for dominance.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. He sees it as a dynamic interplay.
Okay.
Where both the masculine and the feminine have these essential roles to play.
Got it.
And this is where his idea of polarity becomes really important. He argues that when we try to suppress or deny those natural desires, we actually create more problems for ourselves and for our relationships.
So trying to force ourselves into some neutral, passionless way of being is actually counterproductive.
Exactly. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater.
Okay.
Eventually, it's going to pop up.
Right.
And maybe not in the way that we expect.
Deida is suggesting that this, what he calls this depolarization, it leads to boredom, frustration, and a sense of emptiness.
Yeah. And this isn't just about romantic relationships either.
Okay. Where else does this apply?
Think about your work, your creative pursuit, how you interact with the world in general. If you're always trying to downplay your masculine edge to avoid rocking the boat, you end up dimming your own light.
Right.
And limiting your potential.
He even says that a man who denies his desire for the feminine will eventually lose interest in his work and his purpose. It's like that life force gets depleted.
It's interesting how all these different parts of ourselves are actually connected.
It is.
And Deida doesn't shy away from exploring that, that shadow side of masculinity either.
Okay.
He talks about the warrior, the conqueror, the part of us that's not afraid to go after what we want.
That sounds a little dangerous.
It can be.
What's to stop those darker impulses from taking over?
Well, Deida thinks that these qualities, when they're channeled in the right way, are actually essential for a man's growth and fulfillment.
Okay, so how do we do that?
It's about embracing that primal energy and using it constructively to create, to protect, to lead.
So it's about finding that balance, that integration of both the light and shadow sides of ourselves. But how do we actually do that? Does Deida give us any guidance?
He does. He talks a lot about specific practices for cultivating this, superior way of being.
Like what?
One of the key things he emphasizes is breath work.
Breath work, you mean like deep breathing exercises?
Yeah, but he takes it a step further.
How so?
He talks about breathing down the front of the body through the heart and the belly as a way to open up and release tension.
Okay.
And even using the breath to connect with and energize other people.
Wow, so it's not just about calming the mind.
Right.
But about cultivating a certain kind of presence and energy.
Exactly. And he also talks about some pretty, let's just say, advanced techniques for working with sexual energy.
Okay.
Now, I know this might not be for everyone.
Yeah.
But Deida believes that mastering our sexual energy is a key part of mastering our lives.
He sees it as this microcosm of our relationship to power, to pleasure, to surrender.
Exactly. It's about learning to be present and in control. even in the middle of intense sensations and emotions.
Okay, I can see how that ties into the themes we've been discussing.
Yeah.
Breathwork, sexual mastery, living with purpose.
It's all connected.
It's all about cultivating this deeper connection to ourselves and to the world.
And one of the most radical things Deida talks about is surrender.
Okay.
Letting go of control, embracing the unknown.
That's scary.
It can be, he sees it as the key to experiencing real freedom and ecstasy, though.
Yeah, but that can be terrifying for a lot of people, right?
Absolutely.
Especially in a culture that's all about strength and being in control.
It takes a willingness to be vulnerable, to get out of our comfort zones, and to trust that something bigger is holding us.
Deida seems to believe that through this surrender, this letting go of the ego, we can tap into this deeper source of power and wisdom.
He also talks about how important it is to spend time alone and to be in nature as ways to reconnect with our true selves and to quiet all the noise of the world.
So it's not about becoming some emotionless robot.
Yeah.
It's about finding that balance between strength and vulnerability control and surrender, embracing the fullness of who we are as humans.
Beautifully said, and it's a journey, not a destination.
We've just scratched the surface of Deida's work in this deep dive. It's full of challenging ideas and thought-provoking insights.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final question to think about. Deida talks about this idea of dissolving into the moment, both sexually and spiritually. Where in your life are you holding back from that full surrender? What fears or limiting beliefs are keeping you from embracing the unknown and letting yourself get swept away by the current of life?
That's a great question to reflect on.
It is, and we encourage you to keep exploring these ideas and find your own path to a more fulfilling life. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Better Every Day. We hope you found some actionable insights to help you on your self-improvement journey. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on future deep dives. And if you're on YouTube, hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, small steps every day lead to big changes. See you next time.